All right, Joel Klatt joins us at this time each week as we talk college football with him. We are finally to rivalry weekend. We may disagree in the manner in which Klatt approaches this, but we all agree that last Saturday, can't happen in college football anymore. I don't want to talk about who played who, but across the board, that was a terrible Saturday of football, Klatt, and it's a shame we build up to a rivalry weekend, but we have to suffer through the weekend before. We got to fix that across the board.
Yeah, I think that, hopefully it'll be fixed. I do think, and I want to be like abundantly clear, and I said this on my show, this is not just an SEC problem. Everyone has cupcakes. It's just a matter of timing, and I think we all know that. So, Dan Lanning lamenting his schedule. I'm sure people have pointed out, hey, like Montana State's on your schedule.
That's right.
So, now, I will say this, and I gave a defense on my show of Alabama's schedule. Alabama's schedule is totally, obviously their league schedule is legit. We know that because the SEC is so deep this year. But even outside of that, scheduling Florida State and Wisconsin, those are two, when they made the games, like really big games that they're scheduling. They've gone away from the neutral site singular non-conference game to home and homes. Like they've done the work necessary, Alabama has to reshape their schedule. Now moving to 9 conference games, obviously, in the SEC will change that. I do think that we'll probably get away from these late season FCS opponents because I don't think it works. Well, let's just put it this way. There's only a few teams that you would be able to manage the schedule so that you could get an FCS late. But then all the other league opponents would be like, no, like we're not going to do that. And so I think just by the nature of the 9 conference opponents, we're going to start to see these games go away. And that's probably good, because Lanning was also correct. It's a stone in a glass house, but he's also correct. He's got to play Washington on the road this week, guys, in what is a really tough game because it's a rivalry game for them. And he had to play USC this weekend. That's very difficult. Imagine if Alabama had to go from, like Vandy right into Auburn or what, kind of something similar to what we are seeing Oregon. There would be maybe not an uproar, but it would be different. It would feel different.
So collectively, I think the three of us, I'm just going to estimate we've seen 125 Iron Bowls. I said earlier, Klatt, they both scoffed at me. I think this might be the most disastrous loss for Alabama in an Iron Bowl ever if they were to lose to an interim coach, backup quarterback, 9-3 back-to-back years for DeBoer. He will lose the fan base. I know that sounds crazy, but he will.
I get that.
Yeah, it would be a absolute
because this is a game
disaster.
Similar to Michigan and Ohio State in the respect of like it. You have to win it, right?
Yes.
Day was on his way to a national championship. They wanted to fire him last year because he lost to Michigan.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't disagree with that take about losing the fan base and in particular with a late loss to Oklahoma. He seemed to have gotten them back on his side. I will say, and I think style matters. Do you guys think, this is a question, I'm not insinuating anything, so legitimate question, not being down there. Do you think the fan base likes the style of football that Kalen DeBoer plays?
Listen, here's the way I would answer that. They win a lot of close games, and Alabama fans had gotten accustomed to blowing people out. I think that was going to happen to Nick Saban, too, just because of the way the game has changed.
But he's asking about to spread it out, not running it, passing, pass.
I'm talking about more of the
I know what Klatt's talking about.
Yeah, and then throw in Kane Womack's defense, although it's really good. There's been people that have been critical with that. So the totality of everything, I think there's something to it. But I think Brown's got a point there. Like, Alabama fans got too spoiled, and those days are over for everyone.
Yeah, they were over for Nick Saban. If Nick Saban were still the coach at Alabama, it would be a different style. Alabama fans don't like the inability to run, but Jim,
they'd be undefeated.
You would tell me Nick Saban would be winning a lot of close games right now.
Yeah.
Of course he would.
Yeah. But he lost some close games too. Yeah. I would say it's easy for these fans to dislike it, Joel, when they're not winning as many games. But they also changed with Lane Kiffin when he took over the play calling and through Sark, and they were fine with it because they were winning games. They just want to win.
Well, and they
hate losing,
that.
and they're babies when they lose.
Think of just for the record, I didn't say that.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, all the people.
I'm one of them. I'm one of them. I know.
Alabama to the core, Dunaway.
Yeah.
Alabama to the core.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So, the change to Kiffin and then Sark was needed because, the 2011 path was no longer available in order to win a national championship. They couldn't just go out there and totally dominate on defense because they ran into Deshaun Watson, and all of a sudden Nick Saban was like, oh man, in this era of football, we're going to have to win 45-42 at some point. So can we get to 45? And they changed because of that. I would make a strong argument, guys, that we've reverted back to where defenses can dominate. Look at the last 4 national champions, and where they stood defensively. Ohio State's trying to do it this year, with a historically, quality defense. And obviously I know that there's some down there that would want to pick apart their schedule, but they've dominated on the defensive side. And when you don't win the line of scrimmage in this day and age, I think that you really struggle. We've gone away from tempo. The 2 best teams in the country right now, Ohio State and Indiana, are also the slowest teams in the country as far as pace of play. Did you guys know that?
Wow.
As far as of snap per seconds, on the play clock, 2 slowest teams in the country. They play the fewest snaps total of anybody in the country. And the game has reverted back in some ways to that nature. And so and that's why I asked the question, because Bama doesn't play the line of scrimmage game, the control game under Kalen. That doesn't mean he's a bad coach, but I think from a Bama's fan perspective, after seeing what they saw, and I agree, they're spoiled. So I'll echo your thoughts. And I think it's hard for them to look at that and be like, yeah, I really love this product.
We've earned being spoiled, but spoiled has happened. Josh Cuevas injury. We don't know his status for this game yet. In a walking boot, foot injury. Likely he's going to play. But how important has that Bama tight end become to this offense? Multiple catches every game. It seems like he is Ty Simpson's security blanket, and he's really good at it.
Well, in that offense, you're required to make big throws down the field, and you're required to attack the defense down the field. But in order to do that, you can't just throw the ball blindly and take chances down the field. So when the look dictates, you've got to have an outlet. You've got to have an option that you can go to that is solid, reliable, and can move the chains. And I think that's what Cuevas has been for Alabama. And you think back to some of those teams that they had at Washington and prior, they had elements of that, an opportunity to get to number 2 and 3, still move the chains. And that's what's so difficult for a defense, because you can't defend everybody. So as a quarterback understands his offense and he understands the totality of the concept that he's running, you're trying to take a shot, you're trying to attack a defense a very specific way. But if that gets taken away, rather than just flinch, take a sack, or force the football into coverage, having those other players that can threaten the defense is huge. So if that's not available for Alabama, they will not be as productive or efficient throwing the football. He'll have to throw it away. He might take a couple sacks that he wouldn't normally take. And I think that's the biggest issue. And by the way, this is all over the country. There are these really important role players that are getting injured. Like, for instance, in my game, Ohio State, Michigan, Lorenzo Style, the starting nickel on defense. You don't talk about him as one of the first rounders, but he's banged up with a shoulder. Is he going to be on the field? Max Bredesen, the H-back fullback for Michigan, who is really critical to what they do in the run game. He's banged up, so it's so fascinating that as the season goes on, we always look at just the starters and what they can be in the top end. And inevitably, in these big games late in the year, you've got backups, and your depth is tested, and that's what we'll see across the country.
Joel Klatt is with us on the Alexander Shannara Trial Attorneys Hotline. Of course, the big new kick is the big game, Ohio State and Michigan, and you can see that on Fox, 11 o'clock Central Time. This is not a should they. This is a realistic will they. If Alabama wins this game, the SEC is going to try to clarify this today, but in all likelihood, they're in Atlanta. There are still people saying that there are outcomes that could keep them out of Atlanta, but the vast majority of the outcomes put Alabama in Atlanta.
Yeah, that's right.
All right.
It is messy, though.
It is messy, yes. It is a 3-team tie. You've got to go to the strength of schedule. Realistically, if you're a Big Ten or an SEC team playing in a conference championship game, Dunaway and I don't know about Lance, we've always operated with the belief you're never going to be left out of the college football playoff. This is not a should they, but this is a would they. Do you agree with that sentiment?
I do. I completely agree with that sentiment. And however, the situation will dictate whether that's true or not. And there's two outcomes that would then throw that into question. If Michigan were to win this week and they become a 10-2 and are sitting there as a 10-2 with a win over the number one team in the country, that would be problematic for a Bama team. Let's say if they were 10-3, because then you start to think about that. If BYU were to beat Texas Tech and grab the automatic spot, and Texas Tech, would widely be considered probably still in. Now you're because what Bama needs to listen, if they go and Ohio State wins and Texas Tech wins the Big 12, they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine, win or lose. But if they were to go to Atlanta and lose, and a couple of those outcomes go the underdog's way, there is going to be a really healthy discussion. Now, I think they would get in over Michigan in that respect, but we've never seen a 3-loss team in a playoff. Would this be the first time? And then you've got to go to this you can't just say, well, they're in the conference championship game, because it's not like they won a division or anything. They won a 3-team tie based on win percentage. I think it's messy. I think it's really messy. I would say 95%. If Bama gets to Atlanta, they're in. 95%.
Okay.
It's not enough. It's not enough.
Off the field real quick. For the record, one of the best play callers over the last 15 years, Lane Kiffin. I don't understand the fascination, though, with he's about to be the highest paid coach in college football and the history of college football, which he will be. With that said, where are you on where Lane Kiffin ends up and how he's handling this whole situation?
Such a good question. It's simple supply and demand. There's a lot of demand right now at high leverage spots and very little supply. It's a deep bench of quality jobs open and a very thin bench of quality candidates available. In particular, because so many guys have signed extensions and decided to stay at their location. Lashley at SMU, that would have been a guy targeted. Obviously, Signetti, Rule, so on and so forth. Dan Lanning coming out and saying I'm never leaving. These are thinning the pool of potential candidates, and so Lane, having not done that and not committed to Ole Miss, is the biggest fish in what has become now a small pond. And that's how you become the highest paid coach. It's all about timing and leverage, and he has that. He's got the timing and he's got the leverage. Okay, so that's just that. Now, where do I think he's going to end up? I've heard on pretty good authority that he's basically got a deal in principle at LSU. Now, whether that's going to come to fruition or not, I'm not sure, because I think that at a moment in time, Nick Saban was very close to a deal with Texas, but it didn't come to fruition. You guys remember that story.
Yes.
And so it's never done until it's done. I have heard that, though, from a really reliable source. Okay. Now you just get into this idea of two issues. One is this pickle that Lane finds himself and all of us find themselves in, and the problem of the calendar. And Nick Saban talked about this on game day. And that is absolutely true. The calendar is broken. Why in the world do we build a roster and make personnel decisions while we're still competing? That's stupid. What are we doing, guys? And Saban was absolutely right in what he talked about. And we do need to separate the roster building from the competition portions of the calendar. And we need to do that ASAP. And I don't understand why it's so difficult to do that. Just, guys, just do it. Stop protecting bowl games. Stop listening to coaches who are desperate to get their 5-star, player in on January 1st into their camp. It just is what it is. You're going to have to make difficult decisions and make some people upset. Everyone's not going to get what they want if you start to do this, but it's better for the whole. You've got to look after the whole of college football. You got to look after college football coaches. You got to look after college football players, and separating out roster building. And I'm including early signing day period in this. We should not be signing players. We should not be opening a transfer portal if we're still competing. The competition needs to end by close to January 1st. Play the playoff in the month of December. Stop taking 18,000 weeks off for finals, which is stupid. These guys are all online anyways. They're getting NIL deals. So move the regular season closer to, the playoff championship closer to January 1st, then sign a high school class, then get the transfer portal open. And candidly, I love the idea of rethinking spring football and thinking about it from an OTA perspective. So that's that. Now we get to just, that being said, Lane as a man has a decision to make. And as a man, you're as good as your word. And I cannot sit here and say to myself, the calendar's broken, so he can do whatever he wants. Listen, I don't love the school zone speed limit, but that's kind of what it is. And it is what it is for Lane. The timing is not right. And this is a hard game, guys. And as a coach, you're asking your players to leave themselves at the door for the betterment of the team and the group. And you're asking them to commit to you, and you're trying to commit to them. And that commitment is your character and your integrity. And if he makes this decision and then ends up not coaching in the playoff, what type of credibility does he have moving forward in front of another group of men when he's asking them to leave themselves at the door and commit to something bigger than themselves? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So it can all be backwards, and he can be in a tough pickle here about I wish the calendar was different. Yeah, that's all well and good. But as a man, he still has to make a decision. And that decision is his responsibility. And as humans, gentlemen, and as men in particular, we are only as good as our character. We are only as good as our credibility. And the greatest threat to our credibility as men is ourselves. Point blank.
Yep.
So I would just look at Lane Kiffin and I would say, hey, man, it is your call. And you don't have to leave. The proof that I know he doesn't have to leave is him. Because he's doing it at Ole Miss. Joey McGuire is doing it at Texas Tech. Kurt Cignetti is doing it at Indiana. You don't have to leave. You don't have to say, there is no part of modern college football that suggests he has to leave to compete for a championship. That's not a reality. So as a man, you've got your character and your integrity, and I hope he doesn't go.
It's deep shit.
Yeah. No, I agree.
No, he's 100% right.
I agree.
Yeah.
You said it better than me, but I've said that a couple of times, not as well. I agree with that 100%. And, you have Trinidad Chambliss tweeting, we're unbothered by anything about next year and fully trusting Coach Kiffin's leadership to keep us moving towards our goals. That the players are having to deal with this. Forget the fans. The players are having to deal with this and still trying to win.
How unfair is this to the players, man?
Yeah.
I'm trying everything in my power to not make it personal, but I'm starting to get really agitated with him. Because these guys, this is their last shot, man. You might coach for another 15 years. Some of these guys, this is it for them.
Yep.
And they're counting on you.
Hey, and the fan base, this is the best Ole Miss team I've ever seen.
In almost anybody's lifetime.
Yeah,
Lance.
and they've got a chance to win a national championship, and without Lane Kiffin, they don't.
No, they don't. That's the thing. It's I said it multiple weeks ago, maybe on this program, certainly on mine. I said the quickest way to be defeated is to be distracted. And the biggest threat to Ole Miss's season was Lane Kiffin. And here we are. Just sign an extension.
Yep.
It's not he's gonna be paid by Ole Miss as well as anybody. What, does he have to go to LSU to be part of their circus? That's the thing, is like, guys, look at the places he's looking at. Ole Miss is more stable than Florida or LSU. Who wants to work at LSU right now? They can't even figure out. They've got all sorts of infighting going on for an AD, and the president, the governor's involved. It's like, what, you're going to go there for what?
I agree. Maybe he'll make the announcement for the Boys and Girls Club of Oxford and get who was the guy that did it with LeBron? Maybe they'll send
Jim Gray.
Jim Gray.
Yeah.
Maybe Jim Gray will come in and do the interview on his decision coming up after the Egg Bowl, coming up this weekend.
I'm just saying, like, at some point we're all going to be old, and
thank you.
Like, our time is going to be coming to an end, right? Not to get too deep, but like, I want to think back in that moment and think to myself, like, I was reliable, I was trustworthy. The people that loved me, that counted on me, could do so for a reason. That's my desire in life. And I don't care what logo is on my chest or what mic flag is on the microphone that I carried during my career.
What do you feel more confident in, Georgia winning a national championship or Jeremiah Love winning the Heisman Trophy?
Georgia winning the national championship, I would say, is more likely than Love winning the Heisman, because his games, not entirely his fault, but his lack of production in the two biggest games that they lost will be ultimately kind of the hindrance. Now, he's phenomenal, and you can make a strong argument that he has been the best player in college football. There's no doubt. But what their schedule has been since those opening two, which were both losses, and then his production or lack thereof in those two, which, like I said, not entirely his fault because they didn't give him the ball nearly enough in those games. And maybe the outcome of those games is different if he does get the ball. I think that if you look at the way that he has shared his carries and still had the production, it's interesting because Mark Ingram's on our text chain, the Big Noon text chain, and Mark is like, he's like, hey, man, I know about that. Check out Trent's numbers, because he shared carries with Trent. So that's interesting to think about. But I think Georgia is the one where I'm like, hey, man, I don't know if I want to play Georgia.
Yeah,
I just don't. There's something about Gunnar Stockton, man. That guy is a war daddy. He reminds me a lot of Max Duggan at TCU, who was just like, we're going to win the game because of me. And I don't know what that looks like, but we are going to do it. They've gotten better. The pass rush showed up against Texas. If that's all of a sudden a thing, then I don't want to see that Georgia team. It's not. Listen, they're not dominant by any stretch, but you got to go beat them, and that's going to be a difficult thing to do.
Other than Ohio State, LT brought this up earlier, and I know it's against 3-8 Syracuse and 1-10 Boston College and 2-9 Arkansas and 2-9 Purdue, but how many teams that you perceive to be playoff teams can Notre Dame beat right now?
A lot.
I think so too. LT agrees.
A lot.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. They would be a really tough matchup for OU if they lined up in like that 8-9 game.
Yep.
That would be because OU just doesn't score enough points, and Notre Dame will get to 24 or 30 even against OU's defense. So Notre Dame is a really scary proposition for a lot of teams. And quietly, again, I know their schedule hasn't been great, and you just outlined some of those opponents that they've had. In the last 8 weeks, they're a top 3, I think. What is it? 3 or 4 scoring defense in the country. So, 3. They're third in the country in scoring defense over the last 8 weeks. They're number 4 in the country in scoring offense over the last 8 weeks. I get it. The schedule has not been great, but I'm almost certain they're going to pass Oklahoma in the next playoff ranking, because if you look at some of those metrics, OU is sitting there in the last 8 weeks. They're 73rd scoring offense in the country. Their D is 15th scoring defense in the country. So you can make a strong argument that Notre Dame is playing better right now and is a better team than OU. And that probably is going to be our 8-9 game if chalk kind of holds.
Yeah, a little too late for Texas. I've got a feeling they're going to beat A&M this week. And outside of that fourth quarter in Athens against Georgia, I got to give Arch a lot of credit where he was to where he is right now, and Sark, how he utilizes him. I mean, Arch coming back next year is going to be a really good quarterback, right?
You would think. I do think it's a reps business. Quarterbacks are much better once they have a lot of reps. Look at a guy like Baker Mayfield or Joe Burrow, or like these guys took a lot of time to become really great. Jalen Hurts is a great example. Once he was a senior, he was a much different player and has got better ever since. So all of that is going to work in his favor. Yes, I think he would be a better player next year. Texas is an interesting one. I think that this one might get pretty wild, guys, from an offensive perspective. This one might turn into like a 2016 like Bedlam game, Oklahoma State, with Mason Rudolph and Baker Mayfield going back and forth. Because this Texas defense, which I thought was going to be one of the elite units, they have not played well over the last, 4 weeks? They've given up 38, 31, 35, and 37 over their last 4. What happened to that defense, guys? And now, I legitimately think this is going to be like a 48-44 game, something along those lines. It's going to be something crazy.
I mean, Arkansas put 5-12 on them in a loss. Arkansas's got a good offense, and that was a lot of backup quarterback, as Lance pointed out. So that's crazy to consider.
So I know Michael Taft has been banged up, but is that the key? So that's just something to chew on as we get set for that rivalry game.
All right, it is Michigan-Ohio State. If there is a rivalry that approaches the hate of Alabama and Auburn, it is this one.
Approaches.
Come on,
Klatt. You haven't lived in this state. They live in separate states.
You guys
Klatt.
haven't lived in that rivalry.
Klatt, they live in separate. They live in separate states. These are the same state. Same state here, Klatt. Smaller territory.
I mean, there are people that mumble in church if the pastor references this game the wrong way.
Hey, does Ryan Day, how much equity does he lose in that national championship if he loses this game again?
I mean, all of it right away.
That's insane, but it's true.
I mean, that's the nature of the beast. Guys, I love you.
Oh, don't
the
do
Iron
this.
Bowl
Don't do
is
this.
not
Klatt, don't
in
do
the
this.
hemisphere of Ohio
You're
State.
out of your mind.
Lance started the show with if 5.5 is a scary number, if Alabama loses this game, he went directly to arrest reports.
Yeah, the arrest reports Sunday morning.
Oh, it will be. I'm telling you, it will be crazy. The people will be getting arrested overnight.
Just because the Ohio State Michigan players don't have enough class not to fight, and Alabama's players and Auburn's players don't fight. Don't give me this.
Yeah.
It is not more heated than Klatt. You have never lived in this state. I love you like a brother. Okay. My brother in Christ, you have never lived in this state to see what an Iron Bowl is like.
All right. No, I'm not discounting it. I don't want to discount it. I think it's phenomenal.
I mean, you did.
And I love rivalry. I discounted it as compared to the greatest rivalry in sports.
Oh, what?
Let's just have some.
Are the Red Sox and Yankees playing tonight?
I mean, the baseball is not a rivalry.
I was joking about ESPN.
Yes.
Gosh. So
wait a second. Will Michigan rush the field?
I love the Iron Bowl. I love the Iron Bowl. I love.
You should come to one.
Everything that this weekend is for college football. I really do. And yeah, I mean, I hope Bama puts it on them. I think that hopefully they will.
All right, Jim's got a question, then I got a question.
Would Michigan rush the field if Michigan wins this week?
Yes.
Guys, Michigan has won more football games than anybody in the history of the sport.
But they'll rush the field, yes.
But they'll rush the field.
Yes, answer's yes.
In 21, it was maybe the greatest field storming that I've ever seen in history. 110 are in the seats, but I realized that day 92,000 could fit on the field.
Yeah,
that's right. If we did you have a series of questions there?
No. Okay. I'm just saying.
I got one more too.
I think 6-6.
Okay.
Whatever bowl they're going to, Auburn fan rushes the field on Saturday. If they beat Alabama.
They would.
If Auburn wins,
sure.
they'll tear the stadium down, Jim. I mean, goalpost.
The St. Simon.
If we could pull this off, would you consider
A crossover?
You finish Ohio State, Michigan, that game's over about 2:00. We get you on a PJ to Auburn Opelika Airport, and you go to the Iron Bowl at Jordan-Hare. Would you consider doing that if we could pull it off?
Yes. Can I have the same plane to catch my son's fall baseball tournament Sunday in Palm Springs?
Jeez, he asked a lot.
I mean, possibly.
Palm Springs, Florida, or California?
That's going to be California. That's going to be the deal breaker.
I am unwilling to miss my son's game on Sunday.
Nor should you. I would just love for you to experience an Iron Bowl, and generally you can't because it's normally at 2:30. But a primetime Iron Bowl, you could do it. So I'd love for you to experience it.
I would be interested in
And
that.
it's better at Jordan-Hare because those are better games. The games at Bryant-Denny are, by and large, blowouts. You need to go to one. I tell people all that all the time. If you want to go to an Iron Bowl, go to a Jordan-Hare one because you're going to see something crazy, and you're going to get a closer game. The ones at Bryant-Denny are blowouts.
The kick six.
Yeah.
So I randomly...
He makes it sound like Lane Kiffin's going to decide whether or not he's going to go to Knox's game after the Egg Bowl.
So, Klatt, I want to ask you this before you get out. Because, first of all, these guys know I'm a big DeBoer guy. I think he is a hell of a coach. I was pushing, like, Greg Byrne before we even heard DeBoer's name. I was like, this is the guy they need to go out and get after Nick Saban. I don't want him going anywhere. But I did meet a big Penn State booster a couple of months ago. So I had somebody reach out to this guy just to ask him the DeBoer question. Here was his response. And I'm just saying, if DeBoer loses to Auburn, I don't know how you feel about this. He said, we have worked on DeBoer, but he isn't willing to consider it right now. He's so focused on trying to make the playoffs. That said, we certainly think he needs to consider it, especially if he doesn't make the playoffs. And then this guy said, that said, why would he leave to come somewhere that just fired a successful coach who made the playoffs last year? With all that said, where do you think Penn State is? And do you think there is a possibility if DeBoer did lose on Saturday, he would look to possibly go somewhere else?
This is going to be an answer that's not specific to that exact question. I think we're going to have a coach shock us and leave a place that we're not expecting. I've heard Florida is doing work on Lincoln Riley. I know Penn State was doing work on Kalen DeBoer. And so you never know what the inner workings and how happy people are at their place. It can look good on the surface, but we don't know exactly, what they're thinking in terms of their long-term viability at those locations. So everyone's focused on Lane Kiffin right now. He's the biggest domino. Hopefully we get that answer, and hopefully it's that he's going to stay at Ole Miss, because if not, I think it's an absolute dumpster fire on the whole sport, and it makes the entire profession and this entire sport look bad. And then we are going to have somebody leave a really successful place. I firmly believe that. And it might be DeBoer, but I wouldn't leave Bama to go to Penn State.
It's a worse program.
I think that last thing that you said.
It's a worse program with equal demands. I mean, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
Maybe not equal demands. I mean, James Franklin got how many years and never beat Michigan or Ohio State?
Yeah, that's true. That's more than an Alabama coach would have been given.
But he was in the semis last year.
But it's more than an Alabama coach would have been given for sure. Losing to Auburn and Tennessee consistently, an Alabama coach would have never made it that far. Klatt is right about that.
No, not a chance.
Yeah,
not a chance. If an Alabama coach can't survive that,
no.
You could even throw, if it was Georgia and Tennessee. If
LSU
for 6 or 7 years against Georgia and Tennessee,
no doubt.
Yeah.
No chance.
Yeah, even with 10 wins. Yeah.
At Penn State, though, for all your big games, you do get home by 3 o'clock Central Time.
That's true.
Because you cook all the good ones off at 11 Central,
right.
12 Eastern.
That's right. It is. Yeah. You get to party with Klatt and Gus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's go. I love the noon game. Gosh, I love it.
I just wish it's not your fault. I wish the East Coast Big Ten teams were better for you. Yeah, it's just everybody over here sucks right now except for Michigan and Ohio State. Well, Michigan.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you going to mention Ohio State?
I meant to say Ohio State.
Defending national champion.
I meant to say Ohio State.
That's given up 7.6.
I do wish there was some nuance for the good Pac-12, former Pac-12 Big Ten teams, for you and Gus and Jenny to do the big games there, that y'all just got the top pick and
preaching to the choir.
Be able to,
and we don't have the top pick every week. You know, last week was a number 3 pick. And listen, it's tough, and there's window exclusivity and things that are totally out of my control, but for certain. And I wish it was different. And I wish that we had some flexibility to do those West Coast games, because those would be incredible. You know, USC hosted Michigan and Indiana went to Oregon. I mean, I'd love to do those games, obviously. So maybe that flexibility will pop up at some point. Who knows what's going to happen.
So Justice Haynes would make this game more interesting, but is Bryce Underwood good enough to make a play here or there in a rivalry game to beat this Ohio State defense?
let's put it this way, and this is very, it's very simple. Michigan believes deep down to the core, to the marrow in their bones, that if they're close in the fourth quarter, they will win. That's what they believe. That's what they've believed for the last 4 years. And that's all they're trying to do. And at no point does that program, nor any player within that program, feel like they have to go be Superman and be great in order to win this game. That's how they used to feel. Now it's just, we're going to hit them with body blow after body blow after body blow. And if we're close in the fourth quarter, we got them, because they're going to feel the pressure and we're better at that moment. That's what they're entirely built on. And I think what's fascinating to me is that Ohio State tried to match that energy the last few years, in particular from the physicality standpoint and the rushing game standpoint. And they didn't just focus on themselves. Well, the lesson that they learned from losing to Michigan, which helped them go on and win the national championship and play the playoffs so dominantly, was to focus on themselves, be who they are. Hey, we've got Jeremiah Smith. Let's target him a bunch, in particular early. And they did that against Tennessee, and they did that against Oregon, and they were able to win the national championship. So this version of Ohio State, I think, is a more mature version, in particular from their coaching staff, where they realized that lesson that they learned. And I don't think they're going to try to go to match the energy or the physicality of Michigan. They're just going to say, we're going to be Ohio State, and that's going to be good enough. So from an approach standpoint, I think both of these teams feel very confident, and it's a very different approach from each. To your question about Bryce Underwood, I don't think he has to be great in order for them to be close in this game. They've got to be great at the line of scrimmage, and they've got to own the line of scrimmage, stop Ohio State's run game, be able to create some first downs, maybe a short field, and just be close late. Because I will guarantee you this, not only the Ohio State fans, but those players and those coaches, if it's tight late, the pressure on those guys is enormous.
Yeah. All right, we'll be watching, Klatt. Hey, listen,
me nervous.
You and your family have a tremendous Thanksgiving. We are thankful for you and
awesome.
this time every Monday.
Yeah.
And enjoy the game. We'll be watching it Saturday. Thank you, Klatt.
I'm echo that. I'm thankful for you guys. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I'm so excited for you guys to take part in the second greatest rivalry in the sport.
We'll see. Get out of here.
We're going to Ohio State, Michigan?
Get out of here with that crap. Klatt with us on the Alexander Shinara Trial Attorneys Hotline.